right, welcome to episode 35 of the At Bat podcast presented by War Media, where we give you our thoughts on the latest Chicago baseball news as well as take a trip around the league. I am Saul Rodriguez. I am joined by my War colleagues Chris Pennant and Gabe Wilkins. How are we doing today, guys? How are we doing, Gabe?
Can't complain, man. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm 4 for 4 thus far off our free agency special. So, and without any sources, might I add. So, just following the moves and following the business. A lot to talk about, a lot to discuss for sure.
I can complain. I can complain about a lot of things, but I won't. It's not. It doesn't even have to do with baseball. And I'm just a curmudgeonly dude. But it's different.
I feel that wild times we live in. It's been, and not only that, not only just the real world, but I mean, with all this baseball stuff that's going on, I don't even know what to think. I mean, coming off, before we started recording, I was just talking about how, waking up to the Judge news, which we'll get into, is nice. But then, just seeing the Wilson stuff, and as much as Gabe said, I mean, yeah, it's true. I saw it coming, but it was just like once I saw those Wilson reaches deal with Cardinals things, it became a reality. But we'll talk about the positives first before we get into that. Before we get into specific deals, though, what is your guys' thoughts been overall, just on the market, like in the sense of has it been more surprising, or has it been kind of like what you guys expected? I know it probably is was what you expected for Gabe, because Gabe over here is like 3 for 3, 4 for 4, or whatever, right? I mean, we'll start with you, Gabe. Like overall, it's basically coming to fruition, right?
It's coming to fruition. I mean, it's people expected and it's people been reporting, but at the same time, it's coming together rather slowly. But I think now, with the biggest domino having fallen rather, prior to us recording this episode, we're now going to start seeing a lot of these shortstops start to make decisions as to when and where they're going to sign.
What about you, Chris? What have you thought so far?
Just on the free agency dominoes thus far.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of a tale of two cities, with the Giants having been involved in those Aaron Judge talks, and just the moves that they've been making thus far. And it's a unfortunate. It's a lousy comparison. I was going to say unfortunate, but that's too average to put it. It's a lousy when you compare it to Oakland and them shopping Sean Murphy and everything that the A's are going through, and possibility of moving. And it's not necessarily directly correlated to free agency, right? But the Giants won those World Series, and they're trying to get their stock back up. And it really, I think it sucks worse for A's fans just seeing that happen across the bay. But I don't know what else you can really do.
That's true. That is true. And I mean, the best thing the A's could do, probably besides like a signing or something, is probably just move to Vegas at this point. But
I think so.
That's what it look like it's gonna happen.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So
looking like a done deal at this point, because it's evident that Oakland, or the city of Oakland, and its officials don't really want to take a chance and spend taxpayer money on building a new stadium. And even if it's privately funded, it seems like they just have no interest in being a sports town anymore. And it's really unfortunate, because you had the Warriors there, who started their run of dominance in the NBA present, and you had Oakland there and the Raiders, and they've all won championships within that little metroplex area that they play in. And now you're not going to have a single team present anymore.
Yeah, it was yeah, I mean, and also coming from and I think it's just because growing up with the money, the Moneyball teams, I guess, and also just in the sense of A's have actually had a good amount of success in the last 20 years when it comes to playoff appearances, not World Series wins as much as they've had before, right? But yeah, when you really think about it, with how they, with the budget they've had and all that stuff, or not budget, how much money they would spend, is it's kind of remarkable the type of success they've had. But then it just all the low years are kind of the reason why they shouldn't be there type thing. It's always oh, they just remove and no fans go and all that stuff. But I'll definitely miss the Oakland Athletics baseball in the future once they're in Vegas. I'll be I reminisce and stuff. But anyways, we'll talk about plenty of other teams like the Giants, as Chris mentioned, and all that. But first, we'll start with the local. So, the Cubs have been, pretty active so far when it comes to signings. They signed Cody Bellinger, Jamison Tyone last night. And I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but Miles couldn't be with us today. But he's going to chime in, via voice memo. So we'll you'll hear his take after mine. But
Yo, 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 what's going on at Bat Podcast? Saul, my guy. I'm sorry I could not be there. I had to go to the DMV. Of course I did. But, wow, let's just jump into it. But before I get to that point, thank you for all the very, very kind birthday wishes. I truly appreciate it. I love this show. Very blessed to see Chapter 26 and, looking forward to the future. So let's just get into it.
really with the Cubs, I'll go first with the Cubs. Really happy with these deals. I know a lot of like talking to a lot of Cubs fans over the last 24 hours, 48 hours. Like they're just they don't one for the most part didn't really understand the Bellinger deal. Like I actually came across a few Cubs fans that were like, "Really, is this a deal that like?" And I'm like, I don't get what's the problem with the deal because I'm like for the way I see it is obviously as most people have looked at it have deemed it is low risk high reward, right? It's you're trying and some people I actually saw also a lot of people on Twitter saying the Cubs overpaid. They were like 17.5 mil for this guy, whatever. But it's like he's a former MVP. It's great defense. That's probably why it got the boost that it did for the money. And it's just it is what it is. When you've won awards, you're gonna get money, probably more than what people think you deserve and all that. But I think in general, it's a great signing because he plays outfield and first base, and his defense is great. Yeah, if worst comes to worst, he's just a great defensive player, and he wins games like that for us. So I don't, to be honest, I'm not very optimistic on the bat. I know a lot of people are hoping that he becomes, or he not goes back to MVP Bellinger, but that he at least finds a little more success on the offensive end. I don't think I don't know. I don't see it because I watched a lot of Dodger baseball. I just watched a lot of Dodger baseball. Me staying up late, I'm always watching that 9 o'clock game, and I just watching him, man. He just always seems lost the last couple of years, and a lot of people think it might have been the injury he suffered in 2020, with the shoulder and all that. But I don't know. I did, and I also I'm not going to hold my breath for a great offensive season from Cody Bellinger, but the defense that he has is going to be huge for us, and especially him playing center field, playing first base, being a lefty bat. I mean, anything he does offensive, on the offensive end might be a plus, but we'll see what happens there. To be honest, I think I'm more excited about the Jamison Tyone signing, because of what I've seen him become. Like in New York, he had one year where he had I think like 4.33 ERA. It was a little rough, but then last year he kind of came into his own a little bit and was able to have a solid year. And with him having a low walk rate and all that, like I just think he's going to be a great fit for the Cubs. And I think that ultimately, if we this rotation still needs something. But if like say, and as of right now, I don't think we're gonna get Rodon or anything. But like if the Cubs were to go out there and get like a Rodon type pitcher, having a Tyon as like a 3, like that's like awesome. So I think that the Cubs are doing a great job right now in getting these deals and getting the guys that they need. And it's ultimately like Tyon, obviously you look at this guy again, I've had a couple people being like they don't know much about him, which doesn't make any sense because they're on the Yankees. But like I'm like that type of. I always thought that Tyon was going to be like an ace when he was on the Pirates. He had like that makeup of like being an ace. But I think as of right now, he's probably the best he can be as a 2, which I'm not going to complain about. But yeah, other than that, first before we get into like the ifs, because I do want to talk about like people have been talking about, oh, we might get Bogarts and Swanson and like Correa, like this, like all that stuff, like with them. But I want to get you guys' take on the deals in general. Like, Chris, we'll start with you. What did you think about the Bellinger deal and the Tyon deal?
Our guy Eugene McIntosh, it's the Bigs. I saw he posted on Facebook. He was a fan of it. I mean, it's a prove it deal. Yeah, I know the $17 million might jump out, but I think this is what Gabe and you and I were discussing last night, just in how the public's understanding of how much that dollar amount really is.
Mhm.
But 17 million now and 17 million when we started watching baseball is just, it's got to be, it's wildly different now.
Mhm.
Not only are we going through a period of inflation, we've gone through a devaluation of the dollar just over the last 20 years that just can't be ignored. So don't think about the contract. Think about exactly what you said. He is a guy who's versatile. He can play a number of positions, even if he's mainly playing center field and DH now in the new area of universal DH. And pretty much anything, like you said, anything that he gets you with the bat is a plus. It still is kind of mind-boggling to me that he dipped so far down after those first 3 seasons. Because you figure 3 seasons in, if a guy's hitting like that after the season, his rookie season, you won Rookie of the Year.
Mhm.
It's not that the league figured him out. It's just something happened. Something changed. And so if you can get a Cody Bellinger that hits 250 and, an OPS of somewhere close to 800, then it's worth it. And he gets to his next contract if you want to re-sign him, or he goes somewhere else and he makes good. Otherwise, this is the Ricketts. $17 million really should be a drop in the bucket for them. So I don't think any Cubs fan should be unhappy with that contract laying out. The Tyone deal, I think I'm the opposite. I'm a little more unsure, just because unfortunately he's got the injury prone label. It's not his fault. He's a top of the line pitcher when he's healthy. And in a bandbox like New York, he showed up. He really showed up for them when he was healthy. So if he can pitch 75% of that in Wrigley, where you're going to have the spring that's going to be friendly to pitchers, and you're going to have those days where the wind's blowing in, it's still going to be friendly to pitchers, especially strikeout ground ball pitchers. It'll work. Can he stay healthy for 60% of that 5-year deal?
I have no issues with the moves in which the Cubs made. With Bellinger, yeah, it's a prove it deal. 1 year, $17.5 million. And it's a 1 year deal. Even if it was a $20 million deal, it's a 1 year deal. And you're not attached to him for a long period of time. And depending on where the team may be in the standings, if he proves to play at an all-star level, he could help the Cubs net back some prospects in return, potentially, for teams that will be hungry and aggressive when it comes to trying to add a left-handed bat, a power bat when he's on and healthy. So you don't really have to stay attached to him throughout the course of the season if he's playing at an all-star level, and depending on where the Cubs may be. Because while the Cubs are in the midst of a retooling period, what I would call it, not necessarily a full-on rebuild, but a retooling period, they can tinker with their roster and experiment with their roster and take these 1 year gambles in ways that other teams might not be able to, who have championship aspirations and must figure out a way to maximize their dollars to the best extent possible. With that said, in regards to the Italian situation, I have no issue with that contract. Yes, his health is a red flag and a cause for concern. But at the same time, he's been a guy who typically keeps his walk ratio low. He is a guy that pitches the contact, but not too much of power contact. And they needed someone that could take innings in some capacity. Like Cal Hendricks is under contract for another year, and he'd have a rotation spot if he was healthy, but he's rehabbing from a capsule tear in his throwing shoulder. Justin Steele just earned a rotation spot with a solid rookie campaign, but at the same time, like Marcus Stroman can opt out at the end of next season. You need a guy who can serve in the middle of your starting rotation and give you innings. And that's what he can do when he's healthy. He does that. I don't have a problem with this deal at all. And I think he's a piece that can really help this starting group, which really has mostly young arms in the mix. And guys are going to really be jockeying for those fourth and fifth starter positions, with Hendricks being out for who knows how long.
Yeah, that's true. And as I said, Miles in here, so we'll see what he has to say about these deals right now.
So let's talk Cubs signings real quick. I'm gonna start with Jameson Tyone. I really, really like this signing. I think he adds really good depth, to this rotation. Kind of like what I've talked about in the past with the Cubs. They kind of need that veteran leadership. You could definitely kind of put him in the veteran category now. He's had some. He's definitely put some years under his belt now. 6 years in the MLB, had some successful years with the Yankees. I think, especially in 2022. Um, Really, really like this signing. I think he's going to add a tremendous depth to that rotation and really eat up innings, and kind of, set up the bullpen really well. I could definitely see him in many starts going 6 or 7, and whatever the case may be, he's going to give us a quality start. So I'm really a big fan of this signing. I think he's going to be a tremendous asset to the Chicago Cubs ball club. Um, and that's just another piece that they add in terms of wanting to compete next year. Um, there's a lot of young arms, and we saw that at the end of last year in terms of how young this team is and how good we can really be. So this is a great signing. I'm a huge fan of it, and I really like where the Cubs are going in terms of pitching. So moving on to Cody Bellinger, I think this is a win-win signing. 1 year, 17.5 million. That's great. We all know the potential of who Cody Bellinger can be. He's proven himself in the past, former MVP. I really think he's going to fit well at Wrigley. I really do. I think he's going to respond well to the fan base. It is going to be weird to see him in any other jersey but a Dodgers jersey. But this is a really, really cool low risk signing. you know, um, I've seen a few people kind of allude to Clint Frazier. This isn't the same thing as Clint Frazier because Cody Bellinger has proven who he is in the past. His physical ability as a baseball player has not gone down. And when I say that, he still hits the ball very hard. He still has a very strong arm in the outfield. It's just a matter of that consistency and finding that barrel. That has been one of the things that has hindered Cody Bellinger's career to this point. A lot of swings and misses. But you know what? I think there's always that second chance. There's always that redemption arc. This can go really, really well. And hey, let's say that it does go well for the Cubs and Cody Bellinger. I don't see a reason to not bring him back to the next year. He's only 27 years old, so very low risk. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, that's okay too. But this is a good piece to add in terms of you know creating more of a competitive edge for next year as well. Because defensively, he is a wizard, and so I could definitely see him in center field. I think David Ross made it very clear that the corner outfields are pretty much a deadlock. But you can also poke Hap in center field. You can move Suzuki around a little bit if you wanted to. But Bellinger in center field is where he strives. I think the outfield is pretty much on lock. I think there's a lot of upside with this. So I'm a very big fan of this signing by the Cubs.
Yeah, no, you guys make some great points. You, Chris, and Gabe and Miles, and the thing is with Tyone too. I mean, you guys are right with the injury bug. He there's been a couple seasons where he's gotten bitten by it pretty majorly. But I'm hopefully he's able to do what he did in the last 2 seasons, which was at least make 29 starts. So I mean that's all I'm hoping for. But yeah, I think that this is a deal that I think if the Cubs don't get a major pitcher in the next year or so, this deal looks, I guess, I don't know how to explain it. It looks less sexy, but because I think it looks sexier with like a top of the line starter because I think Tyone is if he went to a 3, for example, like having Tyone as a 3 would be great. Like I said, so I don't know. We'll see because I'm just interested to see where they're going with this, um, with these deals that they've made because it seems like a little bit not necessarily tiptoe because 68 million is not tiptoeing, but it's I feel like it's leading to something hopefully, but I don't know what it is. What I will say though is that what people think it's this like these deals are leading to is to getting a shortstop, and this whole week has just been Cubs interested in Bogarts, Cubs interested in Swanson, Cubs interested in Correa, and just like they met with this guy. And even to at one point where they were saying that, oh, the Cubs could get Bogarts and Swanson. And I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that because well, one, I don't think that would happen, but still, it would be really nice to come out of this week with a shortstop. And I think what all signs really at this point, with the way the market's going, the way things are going, point to Swanson as being the Cubs the most likely candidate for the Cubs, because apparently their main guy is Correa that they're going for, but it probably is not gonna happen because of the money, especially after the Trea Turner deal, especially with the fact that Aaron Judge officially signed with the Yankees. I just saw Jeff Passan was on a podcast I think in the last couple weeks, and he said if the Giants don't sign Aaron Judge, they're gonna have to pivot to someone else. Meaning it's probably gonna have to be Correa, and they're gonna give him anything he wants in that respect. So we'll see what happens there. But wanted to get your guys' opinions. We'll start with you this time, Gabe. What have you thought about just the murmurs, the rumors, and all that with the Cubs and the shortstop game?
If they were able to get two, that would be a hell of a power move.
Mm-hmm.
And I sure as hell will want to know how they did it. Because trying to convince a shortstop and Bogarts to move to third base, even though it's a position in which he's familiar with and he's played, he hasn't played that position since 2014, if I'm correct, on a consistent basis. With that said, when you typically ask a guy to switch positions, you're going to have to compensate him more money. So I don't see how you can get both of them, especially when both of them play the same position. And I don't see Bogart switching positions unless if the Cubs give him an incentive to, or any team for that matter. Because if that's the case, then another Chicago team might need to get in the sweepstakes for Xander Bogaerts. And I think we all know who that is. But staying Cubs focused and Cubs centered, I could see Dansby Swanson coming here. His wife plays for the Red Stars. That's something to keep in mind. Mm-hmm. And with that said, a lot of these guys don't always make decisions based off of money, as we know. Seeing what Trea Turner was offered by the Padres, seeing what Aaron Judge was offered by the Padres. They received their highest bids from the San Diego Padres, and yet they turned it down to remain on the East Coast on Judge's part, and then Turner deciding to go back to the East Coast in Philly. With that said, I just think that they could get one of those two guys, but I don't see both of them coming here. And I believe that Dansby Swanson, while he might see an increase in the money that he's offered total, I don't think it'll be that much. And he probably will likely be the cheaper option, because Bogarts is not making it any secret that he wants years on his deal. And I think he's looking for a deal that secure himself in the long term, with him approaching his 30s and being in his early 30s as we speak.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. You're looking at the salary that both guys made. I think in the last couple of years, Xander Bogaerts made way more than Dansby Swanson. And I know he's coming off of his initial contract or rookie extension, what have you. But Xander Bogaerts is just still going to command more money, I think, having played at that level for that many years in a big market city, or with a big market team, I should say, like the Red Sox. Not to downplay how good Dansby Swanson's been for the Braves in the past, but there's no way that I can see you moving Swanson to a new position at this point in his career when he's only ever played in the 6-hole. It's more feasible for Bogaerts, but why move him from shortstop? It would make more sense to keep that guy in his position, not the position that he's played, like Gabe said, for that many years, with the offensive and defensive stats that he's got, and move Swanson somewhere else. But you can't really do that when he's only played shortstop. So getting one guy is fine. Swanson's the cheaper option, and he will be better than Nico. He would be better than Nico Hoerner, even if he's not a marquee type player. I don't know if he would be a face of the franchise type guy, but he would be very, very good for that. Bogaerts would be a face of the franchise type guy. So it just depends on what you're looking for and where you're looking for it.
But to add to your point on that, Chris, you say face of the franchise. I feel like whoever they sign is shortstop as long as they got all-star appearances by their name and they won, which both of these guys have done, I feel like they automatically become the face of the franchise, especially with Wilson Contreras no longer intact and Cal Hendricks being the guy whose future and certainty is unknown. They're going to automatically be thrusting into that role. But yes, of course, I would have questions as to whether or not Dansby Swanson can handle that. But if they sign him, it remains to be seen.
Let me say this. I think if you're talking about a face of the franchise, you can have a face of the franchise for a team that's average, and you can have a face of the franchise for a team that's very good. And I think having Dansby Swanson as your number one guy, that's going to be kind of like what we talked about, the Mattingly Yankees, where they're very good, but they might get close, but not really get there. They might make the playoffs. They might win a series and get to the championship series, but they're not going to be, I think, at the same level if you have Xander Bogaerts leading your team in that sense. That's what I mean on that. I get what you were
I
saying.
get what you're saying.
Yeah, and what you guys make some good points, because I have seen that people talk about it that way in the sense with Swanson. Like I've seen people talk about, oh, if they get Swanson, they're still going to need another bat, like another big bat, right? Because Swanson, he's good and he's clutch, because it's one thing I was going to say I like about him is he's clutch. I mean, he's done it in October, and that says a lot about a player. But when it comes, I was also going to say about Bogarts though, is that I actually just got a tweet also that saying that that the Red Sox and Bogarts are they're gaining momentum, so that Bogarts might
Wow.
be coming off the table soon. And I did hear, I was going to say I did hear a little bit about how the Cubs were just like a leverage piece. They were kind of like just like a you know just they were being used basically as like a to up the price, I guess. And it kind of makes sense now looking at it, but I don't know. We'll see. I think obviously if I had to pick now, if let's say Bogart's off the table. If I had to pick, I'm gonna pick Correa, obviously, right? But Swanson would be a nice, I guess, consolation prize, right? And I think that yeah, any of these guys are probably going to be able to play shortstop, unless if they got Bogarts and Swanson, and they put Bogarts at third or whatever, and then like Swanson at shortstop, like I don't know, I'd be okay with that. But yeah, I think ultimately Bogarts is going to be a DH, I think, in a few years, couple years maybe. So that's another thing too that I thought would have benefited the Cubs if they were ended up getting him. But yeah, I don't think it's gonna happen anymore. But yeah, I think with like with in general with the shortstop market, it's been, I thought it was going to go faster once they got Turner, once people got, or once Phillies got Turner, but it's just kind of it's kind of like plateaued almost. Yeah, but we'll see what happens there. I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen with the Cubs and with the shortstop game and all that, but for now, we'll put that to the side and move over to the White Sox, which to be honest, man, I keep talking to my Sox fan friends here and just being like, what's going on, because nothing's happening. And we get it. We're not, you guys, I mean, the Sox aren't necessarily, gunning for any of these signings or anything like that, but the trade market they could be very involved in, and this is doesn't or hasn't seemed like anything is imminent. I've heard talks with Liam Hendricks, like that Liam Hendricks might be on the market. I've heard even something about Giolito maybe, if they like considering moving him, which I wanted to get you guys' opinion if you guys would be down with that, because I feel like that'd be a very interesting move, and there's a lot of ways that you could go about it. But overall, besides the deals that could happen, what have you guys thought about the White Sox being stagnant at the moment? We'll start with you, Chris.
Par for the. I mean, I'm trying to dial it back, but it's pretty much par for the course, and nobody is not unexpected. It just isn't unexpected. The last really big White Sox signing, I think honestly was probably Liam Hendricks or just Monty Grandal. But really thinking about when the White Sox broke open the bank, that in a way that Sox fans were like, oh, this guy was out there and we actually got him, was when they got Jose Abreu out of the international market, when he signed that $60+ million multi-year deal. It's annoying because I don't think anybody was surprised that the big name free agents came off the market. Even though I came on here a couple of weeks ago and said the White Sox should go after Aaron Judge. They have a hole that he could fill ridiculously well. And even in any amount of money, as much as we talked last night, I was just coming from it from the standpoint of, why are these deals coming up now when I thought that it was, kind of looked upon badly then. But Aaron Judge is a guy that at any amount of money, if he stays healthy and produces at 60% of what he did in New York, is a guy that is going to pay dividends for you no matter what. He will put butts in the seats and you will make your money back. Now they're stuck still with the same hole in right field, depending on how Oscar Colas does, how he comes up, and they still have a spot in the outfield because, like we said, Eloy Jimenez should be a DH from now on. And they've lost Jose Abreu. So you have to have somebody to pair with. This is Tim Anderson's team going forward. You have to have somebody to add to the lineup depending on how guys come back. You can't, I don't think you can hold with what you've got. Guys were hurt last year, sure. But the way that the team has gone, they've gotten hurt in the past, so you have to assume that they're going to be hurt in the future, which means you can't count on a full season from Luis Robert, Eloy Jimenez, even Tim Anderson now. So guys are going off the market, and having only signed Mike Clevenger, it doesn't feel like they think that last year was anything but an aberration, which is a pretty stupid way to go about it.
I'm going to put it to you like this. I don't think that there's a safe player on this roster by any stretch of the imagination. However, you better be damn careful about who you trade. And if you do trade them, you can't really afford to trade them for pennies on the dollar. In my opinion, there are only two guys on this roster that they can trade in an effort to acquire steady outfielder in one of the outfield corners, be it left or right, because while Oscar Colas is the guy who will likely be the starting outfielder in right, we don't know whether or not he's going to be up here by opening day or by the 1st of June. We just know that he's coming. So with that said, you need to have a fourth outfielder. And that fourth outfielder better sure as hell be capable of playing every single day. Not only in the field, but productive with his bat. With that said, if you trade in somebody, who are you trading? You trade Eloy Jimenez. That's a guy who could easily, if healthy, be the guy that hits 40 bombs. And Sox fans be like, well, how do we trade him? Luis Robert. If you trade Luis Robert, he could be a guy who's top 5 MVP vote. I never, ever expected for the White Sox to just trade away pieces of their core. Yes, it's unfortunate that you can't really go after big signings or big-time guys like Wilson Contreras because you have Yasmani Grandal locked in. That would have been a guy who, in previous years, if he had hit the market a little bit earlier, would have been priority number one. The way I look at it is Rick put himself in a corner last year by not solidifying the needs in the outfield corners and at second base. I think we all know now that Eloy Jimenez, by default, is the team's designated hitter. The only question is who's playing in left field every day? And who's playing in right field or platooning in right field with Oscar Colas? And because of these problems is why I think you have a bitter fan base that wants to look back and say, well, this is why you spend on a Bryce Harper. It makes sense. Or this is why you should have spent on a guy like Aaron Judge. But let's think about the history of this organization. We've never known this organization to give out $100 million. So you're realistically expecting them to give up close to $400 million for one of the game's top stars. I understand the frustration. I truly do. But at the same time, I believe that Sox fans need to keep in mind, yes, in spite of an injury-prone roster, every season in baseball is different. Baseball is a cold game. You could be in the middle of the pack, you could be in last place one year and catapult up. You just gotta hope and believe that guys come back to Glendale and Camelback Ranch with something to prove. And that Rick Hahn, sooner rather than later, finds a deal that helps this team, not only in the short term, but beyond. Because they really can't make too many moves. And then when you add that on top of the fact that their farm system isn't really highly ranked, even though I think they have several players that can contribute within the next several months to 2 years, it's like he's a rock in a hard place, but he put himself there. And so now he's got to figure out a way to climb up out of it and not trade guys for pennies on a dollar. Because if he does, it could go from, are we playing for the Central Division or the World Series, to, oh, we got to rebuild again.
Yeah, and let me say this: as much as I know fans are upset, and they have a right to be, when pretty much every team outside of Oakland and Kansas City is proving that they're willing to put up bread, and maybe even Tampa Bay, maybe. I think it's the fans aren't GMs. We don't know what goes in the ins and outs. We can see that there are a lot of people who have been hired to be general managers over the year who didn't necessarily know what they were doing, but there are very few people online or in Twitter space or even who have shows like this one who are qualified to be a general manager. That being said, I can understand the frustration, just the frustration over the team not being willing to put up the money that really qualifies to, you got to spend to be a contender. And it's not a gambling game necessarily, but you've got to risk some to reward to get the rewards, right? So that's why, even though we know it was like a pipe dream at best, getting one of those guys who went off the board last night and this morning, we could still be rightly pissed about it, and that I understand. Just rightfully upset, and there's nothing wrong with that. That said, Gabe, you are absolutely right, because there's nothing worse in this game than buyer's remorse, or in this case, seller's remorse.
Mm-hmm.
Eloy and Robert, I am not willing to trade. Even though I talked about them, their injury history, because Eloy, we've seen what he can do when he's healthy. When he came back in 2021, I think it was, he was lighting cats up. In the end of 2020, he had a ridiculous number of extra base hits those last 2 months of the shortened season. And I know 2020 was weird with nobody having access to video, but he's still that guy that he doesn't have to put the ball over the wall for him to make an impact in your batting lineup. Robert, same guy, and he can cover the outfield from gap to gap. We know that. That is a known quantity. So really, if we're talking about name guys, Giolito just seems to be on kind of a downswing. And if he has a bounce back year, he has a bounce back year. But if you can get some value back for him, rather than what you did with having Carlos Rodon just walk, you get value back for him. There's a guy who can be a number 3 starter when he's at his best. He can be a number 2. And teams can still use that guy. He's not necessarily a power pitcher either. So outside of the Tommy, I think he had Tommy John surgery early in his career, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, he did. Yeah. When he was with
now that I think about it, he's right.
It was with the Nationals.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. But he's not a guy who's getting 98, 99 on the regular, which to me means he's not going to have those type of arm problems that you see from those guys necessarily. He's going to work the change up in the off speed in terms to succeed. And so I think that Lucas Giolito could slide into a spot as even a ground ball pitcher, even in this day and age, who gets still 6 or 7 strikeouts per start. So teams, I think, would be willing to go for that guy and give you something quality back in return, whether it's an everyday player or just prospects. But anything that you can get back in return for a guy like Lucas Giolito, I'm fine with that.
And I say the same to add to Chris's point when it comes to Liam Hendriks. As much as I love Liam Hendriks as a player, He's one of the highest paid players on the ball club. He's a relief arm. The only time you see him is if the White Sox have a lead going into the bottom of the ninth inning, or and on the road, or in the top of the ninth inning at home. That's the only time you see him. At some point, they're gonna have to consider killing him, and they may have to ask him, since he has a no trade clause, which 5 teams would you be willing to go to? He has 2 years and $29 million left on his contract. Have you seen the deals that some of these top-notch closers have been getting lately? He comes for a relatively cheap price. You got a team like the Dodgers that's in need of a closer. They have prospects like Michael Busch, who's a second baseman who can hit for power and average. Dalton Rushing, a catcher behind the plate. A guy that you might need depending on the future of Yasmani Grandal, who has a big season coming up that could determine his future, not only long-term, but short-term. It's looking like his days might be numbered, not only on the South side, but his career in general, based off of the year that he had. You also have the Braves, who are in need of a closer. Vaughn Grissom. You know, it's options. It's options. You just got to play the market right. And I don't expect the White Sox to really make a big-time splash move in the middle of the winter meetings, which are taking place as we speak during this record.
Yeah, and you know what? What I was going to ask you guys too is, I got a notification I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago that said Tim Anderson was not going to be traded. But was there rumors that he was though?
Not from what I heard. Not from what I heard. And that's why I've always found it so funny.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's how I was like, what? Like, were they considering trading them? Yeah, I don't know. That wouldn't make any sense. So that's why I was like, I don't know why. I mean, I guess unless they just said that to clear the air, because there was a lot of trade talks, you know, trade rumors. But yeah, no, I think the Sox could go many different ways, and they've said, you know, they've put the Sox in with, you know, considering getting Sean Murphy, or even, you know, people have said, you know, they should consider getting Jensen, you know, Jensen. I think it's Jensen, the catcher from the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
Casey Jansen.
Yeah. And so like, you know, they've put them in that, you know, category, but we'll see. I mean, they could go many different ways, and I think that the Sox will get, you know, some deals made that will make Sox fans happy. I just think it just always takes a while.
See, that's Saul is real. Steve Stone is a lot of things, but he is very right. He said that Sox fans are never truly happy.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
That's a fact. Hey, until they see the on-field product. Until they see the on-field product. If the on-field product does not match up to par with expectations, 35th Street will be a hot place in the middle of a hot summer in the Windy City. I can promise you that.
And hedonic. That's the word to use. Inability to feel pleasure.
I mean, that's what I'm telling you. Like, anytime I see the Sox just doing what they're doing right now, like, I can't imagine, like, not that the Cubs have, like, always, like, you know, overspent or spent big money, but at least, like, for a good portion of, like, from that I've been a Cubs fan in my life, that they have spent a good amount of money. I just can't. That would be just so frustrating, you know, to be like sitting there and being like, my team could spend this amount of money, but they just don't even try. And I don't know. I'd be I mean, it's frustrating in general, but for any team. But, like, I feel like if I was a Sox fan, I'd be, yeah, I don't know. But I mean, I'm assuming for you guys, you guys just roll with it because you guys are already used to just the BS that comes with it.
You can't help but be used to
it. Yeah.
You really can't at this point. Like, I've been watching this ball club for all my life. It's funny. It'll be 30 years next year since I've really been a Sox fan. I've literally born into the organization, if you will. So, like, when I look at it, I can't be too surprised. But there are days like today that make you realize, especially when you see the San Diego Padres putting all this money up, just how impactful and important a guy like Manny Machado could have been. I try not to reminisce on signings from years past, but I truly believe that if the bread was right and the deal was structured in a manner in which it wasn't so many hooplas and incentives that he had to accomplish or surpass in order to get to it, that he could have come here. Like when you get outbid, it's one thing to get outbid by the Philadelphia Phillies, or for a player to choose the Philadelphia market over Chicago market, which is what Zach Wheeler did, despite the fact that the Sox offered him more money. But when you lose in a bidding war against the San Diego Padres, and you happen to be in the third largest market in America, and in a market in which Machado visited during that winter and was seriously considering coming here, that's a tough blow. That's a tough blow. He was the one guy I feel like that Rick Hahn truly let get away. And now he's paying for his sins in that regard. And he finds himself stuck trying to figure out, what do I get true value on the trading market, and who do I give up?
Yeah.
That one sucked. I think, like, I don't know. Bryce Harper was gonna get the world and a couple moons to go with it, and Manny Machado was gonna get something close to that, but it felt like a bungle. And I try to ignore, like Gabe said, I try to forget. I try to ignore the people who constantly talk about it. And they had so much ample time to talk about it in the midst of 2 disappointing playoff losses. But I'm not a huge fan of Manny as a person, the way he went about his day to day on the field. But put up next to Fernando Tatis, and that one hurts too. He really showed himself to be a guy who can take a clubhouse and steer them in the right direction, and I was surprised by that. And that made it hurt all the worse, because he's still going to put up statistics on the field and play solidly in the field. And then he showed himself to be a guy who you could count on to right the ship. I thought those Padres teams were sunk with the Tatis injury and the way that he just screwed them over. Is just the way he acted. I was surprised by that, and I thought those Padres teams were dead in the water. It just didn't seem like something that they could regroup and come back from. And I feel like Machado just took them and said, nah, we're not going to go out like that. That's why that really sucks.
Yeah, I mean, that's why. I mean, that's. I feel, yeah, because look, I get it, and we talked about in the show before, is that, why people don't like Machado and stuff like that, but it's just undeniable what type of player he is and the type of impact he can have, and the type of leader he's grown into. Because as much as, like, in his Oriole days, I don't think he was a leader of that team. I was obviously like Adam Jones and all that, but I feel like now he's not. I'm not going to sit here and say that he's the most mature guy out there on the field, but he has matured compared to what Machado used to be. I mean, you saw him, like, the type of way he handled, or the type of situations that he handled with that decent, and like he would bring him in and, like, tell him this and that, whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's undeniable the type of talent he is, the type of way that he could, I feel like people, because of his attitude and stuff like that, people didn't never really, or don't really talk about how much of a game changer he can be. And I think that kind of happened, even as dumb, and I said this before, as dumb as this is, as much as ridiculous as it is, people, how, and I said this before, is that people have done that with Bryce Harper, right? It's like they don't talk about Bryce Harper the way they talk about, like, Mike Trout, when they should be talking about Bryce Harper the way they talk about Mike Trout. So I don't know. It's sometimes it just has to do with the way, people perceive certain people. It's just,
and they tend to forget about you. They tend to forget about you when they don't see you every October too.
That's true.
One thing Machado would have done had he came to Chicago, he would have moved Yoan Moncada to second base, and you wouldn't have had this issue in regards to filling a void for who your second baseman would be. Roster construction. No one ever thinks about that.
I think people were down on that when it came up, and I was one of the people like, yeah, Yoan, why couldn't Yoan play second? It was a similarity to what it was going on up north with Javi Baez. Is like, I know there were questions about that too, but those are guys who could play there. And if you have to do it, you have to do it, because at that point you're building something, and it's like, this is for the good of the team. And I still had the same question when people were like, nah, you put Yoan at third. It was like, why not put Yoan at second? He is the type of lightning strike who is going to succeed anywhere on the infield.
Yeah, that's the only reason why I think about it, especially when I see that the team's biggest voids, or holes rather, is at second base and in right field, left field. I'm very optimistic about Oscar Colas, by the way. I want to put that out there. Just seeing the tape that I see, but at the same time, you don't want to put all the pressure on this young guy coming into the league who has to get adjusted to major league pitching. And it's probably going to take him a couple of months to do it. And the sooner he can get up here, the better it'll be for the team. But even though he'll be up here, you're going to need a fourth outfield. And that outfielder that you get, preferably you would hope he's a left-handed bat that has some pop.
Yeah, no, and that's one of the reasons why I'm surprised that the Sox weren't more involved with the Bellinger, signing. Like I thought, like that would have. I felt like that was a perfect fit. I felt like that was more perfect fit for the Sox than it was for the Cubs because you got a left-handed bat. The guy still hits bombs. He can hit bombs. Another power bat. And he could play multiple positions. So I thought it was going to be somebody that the Sox could get, but never really heard much from that side of things.
Joey
But
Gallo is a name to keep an eye on.
yeah, that is true. That is true. That could
He's
be
a left-handed bat with some pop that's still on
yeah.
the market, and I would not be shocked if they got. I would.
Who was
He
that?
might come at a cheaper price.
Joey Gallo.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah,
would like that.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah.
On a 1-year deal. I could see it.
Because OBP is still king.
That is true. That is true. But we'll move on now to the rest of the league and some of the moves. We'll finish off by going through some of these moves that have happened over the last couple of days at the winter meetings. With the biggest one being, of course, Aaron Judge that just got done this morning. We're recording on a Wednesday. And man, first of all, before you say your piece on what you thought about the deal and what you think this means for the Yankees, how about that John Heyman fiasco though? And I'm not gonna lie, I was part of it too. Because I as much as or as soon as I heard Heyman tweet that out or saw that he tweeted out, I let you guys know, and obviously it didn't happen. But it was Aaron Judge going to the Giants, and it was funny. What makes it even funnier is the fact that he misspelled Aaron Judge. He said Arson Judge, right? And then there's even T-shirts now with that, and it's like it's like just a moment in time now.
Bing bong. New York can celebrate. Yankees fans can celebrate, rejoice, breathe, and hopefully not boo. Aaron Judge, 9 years, 360 million. Great job. Great job by the Yankees for locking him down, not letting him get away anywhere. You can't really get that kind of player back. You can't. There's no player that you can get back like Aaron Judge. Great job by the Yankees organization for matching what he wanted. They gave him $150 million more than what the team had offered him in the spring. So I think I could not see Aaron Judge in another uniform. I think it's good for baseball that he's with the Yankees. Could I have seen him going to the Giants? Absolutely. Absolutely, I could have seen him going to the Giants. But his heart is with New York. He really cares about this organization. He's proven that he is one of the greatest of all time. He's a pinnacle player for not only the Yankees, he's an important player for baseball in terms of making the game popular, giving people what they feel is a reason to watch the game. I think a lot of that comes with having a player in the correct city, in the correct jersey. So that's a great move. That's a great move by them. Now, with that signing, the Yankees still have a lot of money that they can spend. There are some things that they have to kind of address still in terms of finishing a season well. Because for Yankee standards, just making it to the ALCS isn't enough. It's just not. That's just the truth. So there are other aspects that they have to address in terms of how they're going to structure the lineup. They're keeping Donaldson around. Cashman still has a lot of faith in him. Whatever, sure, bro, but it is more than just signing Judge. Now you have to correctly build the pieces around him. I think they made the good first step in terms of bringing Rizzo back, a good buddy of Aaron Judge's. So. Yeah, in conclusion, great move by the Yankees, but clearly money does not buy you championships. It does not buy you success. It does not make a player better. In a lot of these cases, a lot of these long-term contracts have not panned out very well. I'm not saying that's going to happen with Aaron Judge, but um, you know, build around him as well. Give him a couple of other assets in terms of support in the lineup. Yankee Stadium isn't exactly a pitcher's park, obviously, but let's see what happens with the Yankees in 2023 and beyond. But that is a major W for New York, for the Yankees, for that entire organization to bring back Judge. But there are still a couple more pieces that they have to add if they even want to fantasize about beating the Astros. They have to address that pitching. They have to. Because if you have Garrett Cole getting hit as hard as he did this year, maybe we need a new pitching coach. Maybe there's some sort of analytics that they need to stop looking at or look more into. But the Yankees still are not a team that I look at and consider a top runner-up for a World Series win. They're going to be very competitive, but they are not going to be a team that is going to blow me out the water. I'm not convinced yet. I've seen this before with the Yankees. I think we all have. Yankees fans have a standard. Let's see what happens. There are a few more pieces that this team must add.
Chris, what did you think about the whole situation? And then just what do you think now that, of course, Aaron Judge is back with the Yankees officially 9 years, $360 million.
It's interesting. I'll get to John Heyman in a second. It's interesting because the Giants immediately, or if not immediately, they had a deal probably in the works to get Mitch Haniger already, which is a brilliant move. He is a guy who can succeed, really, really succeed there, because I think he can hit the ball the other way, if I remember right. And anytime you can hit the ball into that right center field gap in San Francisco, you're gonna have some success. And he can still put the ball in the stands. But I think the Yankees, it's like we were talking about, right? Offline, the Yankees could not afford to let Aaron Judge go. And it's such a weird position, having lived with the truth in our lives that the Yankees are going to find some way to spend enough money to compete for a championship. And they have, but they haven't gotten to the championship. And recently, they haven't been able to get out of that initial round of the playoffs. And the initial rounds of the playoffs, as it expands, are taking you further away from the championship round. That Yankees debacle at Fenway in the play-in game last year was probably the lowest those cats have felt in a long time. So they spent as much as they needed to keep him situated in right field for at least 6 of 9 years to come, and they couldn't afford not to. So good. I have to say it's a good deal for them. They've already put pieces in place by bringing Anthony Rizzo back, but Judge was the centerpiece of the offseason. And it's weird to say that they made a good deal when there was some desperation behind it, but they had to make the deal, and they did.
San Francisco put a lot of fear into some Yankee fans, and I expected that. I did, because they had money to spend. The fact that he's a California native and grew up a Giants fan, I expected for him to listen to their offer and take it rather seriously. When I saw the Heyman report at first, I laughed because I know he's very quick to news, but a part of me just couldn't believe that he actually signed with the Giants, because I've never known the Yankees to ever lose out on a star player that they grew and drafted that rose to prominence in that organization. I didn't expect him to take that long. So when the news cleared up and it was reported this morning that he had signed for 9 years, $360 million, I'm like, the evil empire is back. They struck again. This is what they do. Love him or hate him. They weren't losing that guy, and they couldn't afford to lose that guy. And the fact that he turned down $400 million for 10 years from the Padres, I think what that should go to show people is that money isn't everything. You look at California, they're subject to the highest dock tax in the country at 13.3%. New York-based athletes pay 10.9% state tax. You add all of that into the amenities that New York offers him from an off-the-field standpoint, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. San Diego can't offer what New York can. And either way, he's going to be taxed high for his income. So he could get the 40 million that he lost back and off the field endorsements and stuff like that. It's not a problem. I just hope that the Yankees seek to build around him better. And I look forward to them getting a little bit greedy. They need to, especially with what transpired in the LCS. They get mopped off the field by a dominant Houston team that sent them home quite a bit over the last several years.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I don't think like they shouldn't, and I don't think they will rest until like they're able to kind of like exercise those demons of the Astros, right? It's like once they're once they take down the Astros, I mean it'll be like insane. And I think it'll happen. I think it'll happen. I'm not saying it's gonna happen this year, next year, whatever, but I think it'll happen eventually. And I think the Yankees are gonna be they're trying for it at least, and I will say too, but that I've said this and I've said this for the past couple of years now. When people have talked about, oh, where Aaron Judge gonna go? Where's Aaron Judge gonna go? I always thought that, regardless of how you feel about the Yankees, that baseball's great when like baseball's good. Like it's the best version when the Yankees are good and elite, and they have elite players like Aaron Judge and obviously like I said, but I've said this before where it's better when they're villains and you don't like the guys. But Aaron Judge is not that type of guy. He's a guy you can't really hate. But at the same time, as elite as it gets, and he should be in the Bronx. I as cool as it would have been for him to go to the Giants because it's hometown team and all that is one thing, cool, but I do like to see a guy like Aaron Judge stay in New York. So, but kind of a good segue to kind of what Gabe was talking about when it comes to taxes and all that. Texas signed Jacob deGrom, and I think it's one of the main reasons why some players actually want to go to Texas. I think that helps them for sure when it comes to making deals when they got Marcus Semien and Corey Seager. But yeah, they got their guy though, Jacob deGrom, 5 years, 185 mil. I will say this, that's I wasn't necessarily surprised, but I thought that the Mets were gonna make a more like a better run at him, and it looked like they kind of just were like, he picked he picked the Rangers. I don't even think I think I heard that the Mets didn't even get a second offer to him. Like I think that he just took or he heard the Rangers one, took it, and that's it. So I don't know, and I think and a lot of people again still saying the Rangers are not done yet. Because obviously they still need pieces out there, and they still need plenty of spots to fill in that roster.
Now I'm trying to figure out what the Rangers is. This their way of trying to become competitive? Is this their way of trying to, kind of make a statement in the AL West? I'm not sure. I think they still have a lot to address. Remember, this team is coming off a 68 and 94 season, and finishing in fourth place in the AL West, with really the only competitive team in that division being the Houston Astros, who happens to be, in my opinion, the best assembled team currently in baseball. It's going to take a whole lot more than Jacob deGrom to turn this around. Now, they do have great other pieces, in terms of Marcus Semien and in terms of Seager as well. There are pieces there that they can work with, very competitive pieces that they can work with, but I think there's still some development that they have to do there. So I'm curious as to what other moves are going to be made. I think players such as Bubba Thompson, still very young, give him some time to develop. Ezekiel Duran, give him some time to develop as well. But the Rangers did make a splash with Jacob deGrom, and I think that is a move that is going to benefit them going forward. I just hope that they add more pieces because he is not the only answer. It's going to take a whole heck of a lot more, kind of retooling for this team to become competitive. I think the Rangers' home stadium as well is also very, very hitter friendly. So, let's see how this pans out. I think I'm still going to give them kind of around like the B range in terms of grading them. Great move for them, but they're still probably about 4 or 5 moves away from even kind of making some sort of noise in that division. But unfortunately, that is still the Houston Astros division, and that is the Houston Astros division to lose, not exactly the Rangers to take. So let's see how that one pans out.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as you said, this is one of your one of the guys you hit on with the whole predictions. So yeah, what do you think about the deal, and then just overall with deGrom in the Rangers?
Well, to add to your point, Texas has no state income tax.
Yeah, there
And
you go.
somebody who covered the Rockets in Houston for several years, I saw a lot of guys want to sign there in free agency as a result of that, and the lifestyle and living in Texas and so forth. So I'm not shocked at all, because the Rangers are hell bent on getting 2 top of the line starters in the free agency market. They have not hit that, and I think pairing a veteran like Jacob deGrom with Martin Perez, who's an all-star season ago and that they signed to a short-term contract extension. I think having those two in the mix makes their rotation stronger. But then you add another arm, such as a Carlos Rodon, who they talked with immediately following the deGrom signing, up next to Kumar Rocker, who people forget was a top 5 draft pick, inserted his name back into the draft a year ago after not signing with the Mets, who took him in the top 10 2021. Like that, it's gonna get scary. And then you got Al Leiter's son over there as well, who's a future ace. Like I've been paying attention to Texas for a while. They got a rich pipeline that they're growing in their farm base and stuff, and they got him is to be the face of the franchise, to be their ace, show them young guys how to work. And having him next to a veteran manager and Bruce Bochy, I think is going to be nice and incredible to watch unfold, no matter how things play out in the AL West. I don't think that they're the top team in the AL West by any stretch. I think Houston and Seattle are the top 2, but they're damn sure going to make it interesting because they want to spin to win, and they proved that last free agency. I don't think they're done, but I understand. And from what I heard and from what I have read, talks has stalled between deGrom and the Mets as far back as several months ago when they tried to come to terms on a deal, and it just didn't happen. And I think both sides got fed up, and I think Jacob knew by the end of the year, hey, I'm out of here.
I think it's interesting for the Rangers because after those years with Ron Washington, they collapsed. They didn't collapse quickly, but they fell so hard that they were pretty much off the map in the AL West. I mean, coupled with Houston's rise as just a dominant power, probably the dominant power in baseball right now. I think the Rangers saw that and felt like they had to bring the interest back to themselves because the Astros had been mired in kind of just trying to break down the door while the Rangers had come up, and then the Rangers fell back to earth and the Astros were winning World Series left and right. So there's that. There's, we've got to make sure that we keep our market share. Then they were successfully able to strong arm the city of Arlington to get that new stadium. I'm not going to talk about that. But you can have a guy with the guys that Gabe mentioned, with Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker and the guys that they have in their farm system. deGrom's 34, just over 34, and you sign him to that deal. So by the time that those guys get up to the majors that they expect, he's probably going to be kind of, dropping off of his precipice. But pitchers always know how to pitch, especially guys like him who have been able to succeed in tough situations where they weren't getting run support. So he's going to be able to, if he so chooses, impart that wisdom to those guys who have come up as throwers and teach them how to pitch, be a guy to teach them how to pitch. If they get a guy like Carlos Rodon, who had to come back from so many arm injuries and various maladies, he's going to be able to teach them how to pitch. And then I want to see, they got Andrew Haney, who curiously had his best season in 7 years? Very curious. but you have him as a 1-year stopgap option. And honestly, as much as I liked him, I still want to see what they can get out of Dane Dunning if they don't let him go. So they are building something, point blank, period. They have Adolis Garcia. They have Marcus Semien at shortstop. They have Cody Seager, whatever you can get out of him at his veteran time. And if you want, you can move him to DH. And then the guys that we haven't mentioned that they grew who have started to show something, Jonah Heim behind the plate and Nate Lau at first base.
Mm-hmm.
So the Rangers are going to be very interesting in the next few years. And even with the Astros, you figure maybe they slip 1 year, or if you can just get into the playoffs, it's going to be an interesting division with those teams behind them, the Mariners and the Rangers, coupled with if the Angels ever figure the fuck out how to maximize their talent, then you have interesting teams out there.
Yeah, and I don't think that'll ever happen. Honestly,
They trying though.
Lord
knows
they're
trying.
They have to.
Trying. They are
Like,
trying. Even with a depleted farm system, they traded for Hunter Renfroe. Rendon gave him the big money. It hasn't worked out due to health issues. They are trying. I have to commend them for trying.
If there's a team that needs their owner to sell, other than the Sox, it's the Angels, because Artie Moreno is, never mind just getting the wrong guys. The allegations that came out about their minor league system should have had him. Major League Baseball should have been like, you got to sell, bro.
Yeah,
like you can't let that stand. I knew they wouldn't, but they should have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I feel like the Angels always prioritize hitting when that's not really the problem. I mean, and that not to say that they are a juggernaut in offense as much as you have Otani and Trout, but it's still like I don't know why they're always signing just hitters when or offensive players when you should be getting pitching. I mean, that's always been their main problem in the last like decade or so. It's just pitching, and they can't find anything or can't get anybody. I don't know. But as story for another day. We'll move on now to Trea Turner in the Phillies. He got 11 years, 300 million. And this is another one that, hey, we talked about. I mean, I was pretty confident in this one in general that he was going to go there, just because of all the tie-ins and all that. And they got their man and 300 mil, man. I mean, that's a lot of people are surprised at the year amount, because he's going to be playing in, if he stays in Philadelphia for the whole deal, he'll be finishing that contract at I think 41.
This is a huge signing by the Phillies. I think the Phillies have been making it very clear during these winter meetings. We want to win. They want to win. Trea Turner, 11-year, $300 million deal, turning down a larger offer from the San Diego Padres. This just shows how much he loves the East Coast. It shows how much he enjoys playing with Bryce Harper. I think I don't see a reason why this Phillies team is not going to be competitive next year. I think that they are going to be kind of right back where they were. It is going to be competitive. I think the Mets are still going to be a competitive team, although they are picking up the pieces a little bit in terms of pitching depth in the rotation. But they've already started addressing that here and there with deGrom signing with the Rangers. So with that being said, I think the signing of Trea Turner to the Phillies is very, very solid. You have Turner, you have Harper, you have Real Muto, you have Kyle Schwarber, you have Hoskins. That's a very solid lineup. So and I didn't even mention Castellanos, excuse me. Lots of upside here, lots of speed in that lineup. Very, very mobile lineup. Defensively, they're still interesting. Trea Turner's never been an elite shortstop. I don't really think the Phillies have exactly an elite defender besides Real Muto behind the plate. Harper as well in the outfield. He's also an elite defender. Besides that, the Phillies are never going to be a team that is going to blow us out of it's going to blow us away defensively. But this signing right here is showing that the Phillies are ready to go back to the World Series next year and, pretty much take it home. $1 billion committed to 6 players. That's a lot. That's a lot of money. So let's see how this pans out. I hope the Phillies do have a solid year. You never want to see this much money getting passed around, and for these things to not work out. But I think the camaraderie is there. I think the upside is there. I don't see a reason why the Phillies are not competitive next year, and at the least back in the NLCS. But that'll other teams will determine their fate for sure, and we'll see what happens with that. But that's a really good signing for the Phillies. That's going to be a very very competitive ball club going into next year.
Great. It's a great deal. I'm still surprised that they put up that much money in for those amount of years, which Gabe and I, we got into that long conversation about it. But Trea Turner is a game changing type of player, and he's worth it. And the Phillies, they've continued to add. They finally got right enough and took advantage of the breaks they got and made the World Series and made it a close World Series against one of the best Astros teams that we've seen in their run of of dominance. They took that team to 6 and had a good shot to win if they had won game. Was it game 4 or game 5? I think game 5. If the Phillies win game 5, that game that they lose by a run and get the 6 walks off Verlander, I think they've got a good shot as any to win the World Series. So bringing in Trea Turner, massive upgrade over a guy who I really like in Gene Segura. You put him in that lineup with Real Muto and Harper. Just see what happens. And you've got those guys for at least 4 years together, if not 5. Can't say enough about it.
I wasn't shocked that he signed with the Phillies by any stretch. That wasn't a secret at all. I think everybody expected that. But when I saw that contract, I was definitely shocked that he got $300 million. I thought it would be anywhere between 275 to 290. More power to him. As Chris alluded to, the man bat plays with the best of them. We talk about a batting champion, a guy that's been there, done that, won a World Series.
Hit for the cycle 3 times.
Right, exactly. Not too many players can say that. And when you add all that together with this Philadelphia team that fell 2 wins short of a title, what better way to send a message to the rest of the league that, hey, we're happy with where we are, but we're not satisfied with what transpired, and we're going for more in 2023 and beyond. I think they sent the message to the rest of the league with this type of move, man. And that National League East, I tell you, it's going to be a barn burner with Atlanta, the Mets, and the Phillies. That 3-team race in the East, that's going to be a real fun race to watch from July through September. I'm looking forward to seeing what those teams have to offer. And with Bryce Harper being out for like the first portion of the year due to getting that Tommy John surgery on his arm, man, they're going to need a guy like Trea to step up and be ready right away. And I think he will. He provides them that.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I was like, man, how about not having Bryce Harper for a little portion of the season and being bummed out about that, but then you have Trea Turner now. Like,
yeah,
it's almost not to say that Trea Turner is Bryce Harper, but I'm saying that they might even you might not even notice a difference. Like they might come out strong and when Bryce comes in, it's just gonna propel them to who knows where. So yeah, and the division is gonna be the division is nasty because it's funny because I keep seeing tweets too from like Braves fans saying that like even though they got Trea Turner, the Braves are still on paper the best team in the East and all that. And it's funny to me because you could make an argument regardless of for all those 3 teams like the Mets and all that, especially after this next deal we're going to talk about because Justin Verlander signed with the Mets. He signed a 2-year, $86 million deal. Gabe, what did you think about that deal? I mean, like I said, that whole division is going to be crazy as it has been over the last couple of years, but even more so now. And having a guy, I think this is going to be just the second time I heard on MLB Network. I think it's going to be just the second time that a rotation features 2 pitchers that have won 3 Cy Youngs. And I think it was the last time it was Max Scherzer and Clayton Kershaw. Now it's going to be Verlander and Scherzer.
Justin Verlander clearly has a lot left in the tank. What an incredible year by him. 18-4 with a 1.75 ERA. We all know how talented. We all know that he, in terms of pitchers, he's goated. He's one of the greatest of all time. I think this is the Mets kind of compensating a little bit in terms of where they have lost some of that pitching depth in the rotation with deGrom gone. Bassett hasn't been re-signed by them yet. I just talked about Taijuan Walker going. going to the Phillies. So, with that being said, I think that's a good solid arm to kind of make up for it a little bit. And that's a very sarcastic way of me saying it. That's a great way for them to make up for it. Verlander still has very electric stuff, very electric breaking pitches, pitches with authority, pitches with command, will go deep into games. Obviously, there's questions about his performance during the postseason, but clearly, there are things that he addressed this year, and it led him to winning a ring. So, great job by the Mets. I still think they have a little bit of work to do in terms of making up for some of the arms that they lost. Offensively, they're going to stay solid, but they maybe, one or two more arms that can give you quality innings. That would be very helpful for the Mets going forward. But they've taken a great first step in addressing it in signing Justin Verlander. That is a great pickup by them, despite the fact that he is 39 years old. So, great job by the Mets.
Rich get richer.
Yeah.
Steve Cohen, one thing I respect about him, he loses Jacob deGrom, which I expected him to, but he was going to find a way to rebound. And that's what he did with Verlander. And that's why I expected Verlander to go there. With Houston having such a rich pitching rotation, not really being in dire need of his services to the point where they had to overpay. He had a chance to walk, and I think he's in a real nice spot. If he can continue to stay healthy and build off of what he put together at the age of 39, going into his age 40 season in 2023, the National League is going to have a problem. And I think it provides him with a challenge, too, considering the fact that this will be his first time pitching in the National League. So I think he's looking for a challenge to keep it going. And I like the 1-2 punch a lot. I like the 1-2 punch a lot. I like the other addition that they made, acquiring Jose Quintana is a third or fourth guy. I can't knock it. I can't say that I was too shocked. New York seemed like the place for him to be. And the Mets had to do something in the wake of the deGrom news. So acquiring Verlander, that goes without saying, that was a must have.
I think this could go two ways, which is it's almost a very redundant statement. We saw what Justin Verlander was last year, but he's gotten a year older, and the Mets are known for making those big time deals that flame out on them. So if it goes right, then they're set for this year and possibly the next, because you have those two guys at the top of a lineup, and even in a time where starting pitching doesn't have the same exact impact as it does. The Mets are just trying to get back to the postseason. They're trying to get back to the postseason where your starters can have that decided impact, especially guys who you can trust to go 6 in the playoffs. So I think Justin won out here because he is carrying the torch for bag Twitter right now. 86 mil for 2 years is wild. Is still wild in a time where the dollar doesn't mean as much, is not as worth as much. But damn, that's a big money deal.
It is.
It's worth it. I hope he succeeds. I hope it works out for the Mets. I really do. But he could have a very, very down year, and then you're looking at 1 year left and making the choice whether to buy him out or kick the can one more time and hope that a 39-year-old is as good as he was at 36.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think he's going to be, continue to be successful, and his stuff is just too good. And I mean, he's Hall of Famer. So, moving on now to Mitch Haniger to the Giants, and this was a deal that some said it was either to pull in Judge a little more, or it was I guess you could call it a backup deal as much as Mitch Haniger's a great player. And I feel like they got him on discount, right? It's like you look at the money they got him for. It was 3 years for $43.5 million. Yeah, I mean, I've seen the type of player Mitch Haniger is in Seattle and what he brings to the table, and in more ways than just his offense. I think it's a great deal for the Giants, and I think you mentioned it before in the way that he's a gap to gap hitter, Chris. But what did you think overall on the deal, and what do you think it means for this Giants team moving forward?
I think it's just a quality deal. You get a guy who's steadying Mitch Haniger. He has been talked about so lovingly by not just Seattle fans, but I think the players up there too. And you're adding him to a roster that was impressive. They're 2 years off of winning. God, what was it? How many games did they win that year? Was it 102?
The year that with
2021.
Yeah, yeah, coming out
oh
of
yeah,
the
it's like 103, I believe. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that was just a shock. So you're adding him to a lineup that is still 2 years removed from that, even though there's been changes. So without going into too much detail on it, I just think any team that gets Mitch Haniger for that price, I think they might have, considering the market, they might have underpaid him. They
Mm-hmm.
might have gotten him for a steal because he's getting less than 10 million a year on that deal, depending on how it's structured. Average annual value is less than 10 million a year. Let's say that. So I think it's a good deal for the Giants. If people were willing to pay him less, then good for Mitch Haniger. I think he's going to go there and make noise.
I don't mind the move from the Giants at all. They had to spend that money somewhere. And to get a serviceable outfielder when healthy, because that's always been my number one concern with Mitch Haniger, is health. When healthy, he can be one of the most productive guys gap to gap. And I think it gives them insurance out and left because with Jock Peterson coming back now, you can slide Jock into that DH role and allow his bat to be more serviceable for you. So I like the move a lot. And I believe that it could be a deal if he stays healthy. Could be one of the biggest steals in all of free agency because he's always been fairly solid when healthy. It's just been the injuries that he sustained that's kind of had his career up in limbo here and there. But 3 years, 43 mil to add him with this team that Gabe Kapler has, who won 107 games. Now that I have it in front of me in
Oh
2021,
damn.
man, like you never know. And I don't think the Giants are done. I just don't. I think that they're gonna try and make a move for one of these top flight shortstops and add more pieces to a team that has some young talent on reasonably priced deals.
Yeah, no, I think the Giants for sure. They're kind of like, um, I feel like they're kind of like the Cubs in that respect, in the sense of like they're finally this is the off season where they're gonna go off and kind of spend more money than they have in the last few years, and we'll see some of the players that they had in that 107 win team kind of regress a little bit. But they're still young, so who knows, right? They could come back to and find that that groove. So we'll see. But the last deal I wanted to talk about was also one that just happened today, and that's Wilson Contreras going to the Cardinals. And as I said, to open the show, it's not something I didn't see coming, but now that I see it, and it sucks that he had to go there. I knew that I was cool with us not re-signing him, but I'm like, was really hoping he'd go to the Astros. Uh, but yeah, I mean, it is what it is. 5 years, $87.5 million. Gabe, what do you think about that deal, and how big is that for a team that just lost a Hall of Famer, who Yadier Molina's obviously retiring. So what do you think about that deal?
It's a huge move for St. Louis, man, to be able to replace a Hall of Fame catcher in Yadi Molina with Wilson Contreras, a guy who knows the division. I know it has to be familiar with that pitching staff that they have there and guys like Adam Wainwright and such. It's a good move. It provides them with stability for the next several years. And this is a team that year in and year out, they're like the San Antonio Spurs of baseball in the early years of the Greg Popovich era. They always seeking to compete. They always seeking to win, and they're not hesitant by any stretch to spend money. And you really can't confuse them with being a small market team, even though they reside in a small market. Nothing small is in St. Louis when it comes to the Cardinals, in my opinion. So when I look at the move that they made, it's solid because it provides him with stability behind the plate and his back plays. And who knows, as he gets a little bit older, he's expressed that he's willing to play a little bit of outfield that could help them down the road if he's willing to really do that. I don't mind that deal at all for the Cardinals. I think they got the catcher that they needed, and the catcher who helps them usher into a new era of Cardinals baseball with some faces such as Nolan Arenado and the National League most valuable player in Paul Goldschmidt.
For Cubs fans, we can throw up. This is as bad as this doesn't feel good. It feels good in a sense, we're happy for Wilson. He deserved a good deal. He deserved some sort of max deal. Um, I couldn't be happy. I couldn't be more happy for Wilson himself. I had the honor of watching his last home game at Wrigley. What an emotional moment. He truly loves Chicago. Um, but the Cubs had other plans. Now we have to watch him. We have to watch him hit in the same lineup with Arenado and Goldschmidt. That's really, really scary. This is going to be a ball club that is going to be very difficult to play against. You have an elite catcher behind the plate, an elite third baseman, and an elite first baseman. Best of luck to you. Do everything you can. And on top of that, these are the Cubs' rivals. We're going to see a lot of Wilson Contreras still. Don't worry, Cubs fans. But it's not going to be the kind of Wilson Contreras that we're going to want to see. But this is what we're gonna have to deal with going forward. I want us all to be happy for him. Wilson deserves it. Shame on the Cubs management. Shame on the organization. Um, Once again, we let another key asset of a player get away, and this is where I wonder what exactly the Cubs want to do to address the catcher situation. Now, the catching market right now in Major League Baseball is not amazing. It's not. Um, you know, I've heard little things here and there that they want to sign a couple of mediocre players. If we are trying to be competitive, if we are trying to be a competitive team, I don't understand why we don't sign a player like Wilson Contreras. I don't understand why we don't keep a player like him. Um, are we making room in terms of our farm system? What are we doing? There really isn't a catcher that I could think of right now in the Cubs farm system that is ready. There aren't a lot of players in the free agent market that I look at that can really give us a competitive edge.
Yeah, Saul, I'm sorry it hurts, man. I know it hurts. Wilson Contreras is one of those guys that I had learned to love to hate because he was always out front talking. He would talk to you, talk at you, yell at you. You wanted to fight. He was down. He was down to throw hands, and I think that's going to make the Cardinals more formidable. Just replacing that locker room clubhouse voice more so than what he could do with his bat or his arm on the field. And we know that he's still a guy who can shorten the running game. As diminished of importance as that might be nowadays, I think it's still important to have a catcher who can stop base stealers or make them at least think twice or thrice, especially in this age of reduced pickoff moves. Um, but yeah, replacing that locker room voice that Yadier Molina had, even in the short term, is important. And I was kind of surprised. I didn't think that Contreras was going to get that lucrative of a contract at this point. But maybe that's just from seeing that the Cubs were kind of moving forward on him, because he was a guy since he came up I thought was too important for them to let go. And even if they are saying that they were, going to reduce spending, I figured that he was somebody that they were going to keep around as a cornerstone. I suppose there's something in terms of marketing in moving on from a group that you've had in the past and allowing the fans to move forward and embrace new players in the scene. But it was just surprising to me the way that they kind of diminished his importance, I felt like, in their team structure. So for him to get 87, was it 87 and a half from the
Yeah.
Cardinals, I was kind of surprised to see that number. But I think that St. Louis is going to be better off with it. He doesn't have to be a top 3 option in the batting order because you have Arenado and you have Goldschmidt. So I think, if not flourish, he's going to be successful. So again, I apologize for your loss.
And actually, yeah, and that Gabe reminded me that with the speaking of saying goodbye to players, I should give you guys this time to say goodbye to Jose Abreu, officially, because we haven't talked about that.
That was good,
So,
man. That was cold.
yeah, no, no. I mean, no, it's supposed to be a sentimental segue,
Right.
So if you guys have any words for Abreu now that he's on that Houston Astros, you can say them now.
Well, of course. I mean, how could you not miss him? He's one of only 4 players in the history of the White Sox organization to win the American League MVP award. Even though it was in a shortened season in 2020, the games that he had that season were very legendary and helped a lot of White Sox fans, I think, including myself, get through that pandemic, even though we weren't able to be on hand for those games. But man, he just was the true testament of a leader. And we White Sox fans have been fairly fortunate to have solid play at first base over the last 30 years with Frank Thomas, Paul Konerko, Jose Abreu. He upheld that tradition. As much as I look forward to the Andrew Vaughn era, and I know rather, that this is the business of baseball and it happens, it's unfortunate that they couldn't really build a winner around him to make life a little easier for him. I can understand why he made the move that he made, not only from a business standpoint, but for a chance to win. And I wish him well, but it is unfortunate and it's goodbye, but it's not goodbye forever because it's going to come a day where the number 79 is going to be retired and that statue is going to be put out in the outfield. So that'll be a special time. But I can understand why White Sox fans are reeling from that because you don't just replace guys like Jose Abreu. It was many days I went to the ballpark and I saw that dude busting his tail off with a messed up hamstring, still running full speed, playing every day. He went to work no matter the situation every single day and gave it his all. So much respect to Jose.
Yeah. I was gonna make a video and I kind of let it slide by because Jose Abreu personally meant more to me than any White Sox player has since Frank Thomas. He just did. He made himself a good defensive first baseman, if not great, good. He came in the first season and his metrics were down, and he worked his ass off to get better in the field. There was nobody that I saw that was more reliable at turning that 3-6 double play than Jose Abreu. Like, he knew how to throw behind runners going down. And that's in addition to the fact that he was the most clutch guy that we've seen in the late innings on the south side of Chicago in years. I wanted to, it's hard to find. It's really hard to find because it didn't mean that much. But there's 2 Jose Abreu moments that stick out to me. And the third that's an honorable mention. The honorable mention is really, it was reported that when they made the playoffs in 2020, he was in the clubhouse saying, it's like, I made it. I finally made it. And Sox fans felt that. We felt that because they brought in this guy as a big money signing to be, to be a part of the franchise when they finally got to be that good. And it took so long. It took 6 years to get to that point. And in that time, we saw him mash. Even when he didn't have as good of a season as he did in his rookie season, he was still a welcome contributor to a team that was also ran. But that also ran team he helped us get revenge for Jeff Samardzija being trash and put up the cycle on him. And that just for me felt so good as a person who not only was so disappointed in what Samardzija did coming in and being like, oh, I grew up a White Sox fan, and then proceed to stink it up. But for me as a hater of Notre Dame, that felt extra good. And then Not, you would think it would be the year he had in 2020, that ridiculous series against the Cubs when nobody was hitting you, Darvish, and he did. It wasn't that. It wasn't his.
I'm not listening.
It wasn't any. It wasn't his home run against Detroit to walk off a game. The Sox had a game in Boston, I think in 2018, and I relish beating the Yankees, right? I relish beating the teams that I remember the Sox not being able to beat. I relish when they beat the A's in Oakland. I relish when they beat the Yankees in New York. But there's something about winning in Boston that just feels the best to me as a Sox fan. Almost better than beating Cleveland or Minnesota. And I hate Minnesota, but
Me
the
too.
Sox just hate it. But the Sox have always had, she seemed to have trouble in Boston. And I think just those Fenway fans, they feel it more. And it was evident because they had a game, they went into the ninth down one. And I can't remember who they got on or how. It might have been a walk. But Abreu came up against Matt Barnes, who wasn't a premier closer, but he was just a guy who could get outs because he had that blazing fastball. And Abreu took him out damn near to the sit-go sign over the Green Monster. And it was the first time in a long time that I can remember. In baseball, where you can see the moment happening, and you wish for it to happen, knowing that there's like at certain times there's a 1% chance that it will happen, and it happened. Just he gave them the lead. Barnes knew as soon as he hit the pitch, he was like, there was just like the air went out of that ballpark. And that was what Jose Abreu at his best meant for the Sox, who had been a team over their entire history that was a part of baseball. That was what they were. They were a part of baseball. They weren't a part of baseball history to some degree, but they were just a part of, they were there. And he made them more than just being there. It was like Jose Abreu was must-see TV. He was a guy who was like, oh, Abreu's up. Let me check out, see what might happen. Because he gave you that sense that something great could happen when he was at the plate. And so more than 2020 or 2021, I think that's what I'm really going to miss. We're seeing that possibility with Vaughn. We're seeing that possibility with Jimenez, Eloy, and Luis Robert, but what he meant to those guys and what he meant to the fans in the stands won't be replicated. With all due respect to the guys who have come up before him, all of those guys are separate. Frank Thomas, Dick Allen, Harold Baines, Canerco, they each meant something different. And Jose Abreu, his meaning to this group of fans will not be replicated. And that's what I'm going to miss the most.
And he sure as hell helped build that Cuban pipeline connection back in a way that I don't think that the White Sox organization has had it since the days of Manny Minoso. You hear guys like Yohan Moncada, Luis Robert talk about that and how much that meant to be not only Cuban-born players, but Cuban-born players on the White Sox. And he bought that here. He bought that here. He really did. And that's something that will forever be tied back to him, I feel. I think that's a pipeline that can continue because Marco Patti has done a tremendous job in the international scouting department and is set to receive an award for that today at the winter meetings in San Diego as we're recording this. But yeah, like he does have an impact on the franchise that cannot be replicated. I do agree with you there.
Really not much to say about this one besides the Astros still feel like they aren't good enough. I'm kidding. Yuli Gurriel, becoming a free agent, 39 years old. Jose Abreu coming off of another solid year offensively, and he is so great at first base. Not much to take away here. Just the Astros were already incredible, and they just became even better. So Best of luck to that entire division because the Astros are not going anywhere for a very long period of time. They have a young, talented core surrounded by a lot of veteran talent to continue to make these young players better who have proven themselves over a span of 2 to 3 years. That that's incredible. There are how many players we see have a great first year and then the next 2 3 season it just blows up in our faces. This is not the case with the Astros. They have young players who are continuously performing every single season. Jordan Alvarez, Kyle Tucker. I, the list goes on and on. There's players I didn't mention that we all know, but the list goes on and on. The Astros are going to be very, very competitive next year. I don't see a reason why they don't go back to the World Series. I really don't. That was the best pitching performance I've ever seen during the playoffs in my entire life. And then they just got better by signing Jose Abreu as if they needed more. They would have been good without him, but now they're gonna be better with him.
Yeah, and I mean, I always thought about Abreu too, like that, in the way that he was able to make the postseason with the Sox finally, and it's just so cool, like seeing uh, it's almost like with Reese Hoskins too, just seeing guys that have been there for a while, seeing the team lose, right, and then being there as a winner, it just like means that much more to them, and it's cool to have that connection from like the last team or the last um or those last few teams to now, right? All right, but moving on from the signings and all that, you guys got into a good conversation last night. We were in the group chat talking about the way the contracts are and whether they were some that are seem too high or some that are low, and it's just like the fluctuation of either or. But it was really interesting as to where you guys thought about that. So I wanted to get you guys' opinion on just in general with the contracts and where they stand as of right now with the market as it stands right now.
I think it's something that people should understand because, especially in an organization with such a weak labor for not a weak labor force, weak labor union
Mm.
comparatively to other sports. I think people should understand when they see these millions of dollars and they grumble, 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 grumble. It's just not worth as much as it was. Everybody knows you go out and you go to eat, you see the fact that chicken wings cost $17 for six, and they used to be like 12 or something like that. So these $1 million contracts aren't worth as much as they would have been in 2012. $75 million just doesn't mean as much. So keep that in mind. Not just when you're watching baseball. I would say keep that in mind when you're going to the grocery store. Keep that in mind when you're at the ballot box. Keep that in mind when you're choosing who to support and what you're talking about in terms of unions and non-unions. Keep that stuff in mind before you think about calling into Dan Bernstein and getting worked over because you saw somebody getting $80 million.
Yeah, that's well said, Chris. I agree with you on that. And then the other thing that people don't factor into it is when you get that type of money, you're in a different tax bracket completely. And you get taxed at a special rate that most people don't. So even though you have that money, you're not taking home all of that money. And I think that's the part that everybody loses sight of. Yes, they file taxes just like we do, except on a higher scale. So they giving up way more. And understandably so. I'm not saying that they shouldn't. We all have to do that. But they don't take it all home with them. And in states like California, states like New York, states like Pennsylvania, who tax you like 3.29% just for playing games there as a road opponent. You have to keep those things in mind.
But no, yeah, you guys made some good points though, for sure. I mean, that's something that people, I feel like it's not talked about enough, right? Because people just kind of like glaze over it. I'm not gonna lie, I'm one of those people, right? Where it's like I just look at the deals and I'm like, oh wow, it's just the way the market is. Anyway, back to the next. It's just like the way people look at it, but it matters to more than just baseball, and it matters to a lot of things, and it also matters to the players because of like we talked about which state you're gonna be playing in. is a big deal. So it is good to hear what you guys think about that, and I think it'll for sure enlighten people to what they, with the way the market is and what they should be thinking about instead of just a player going to a team. It's way bigger than that. But I think it's a good place to wrap it up for this week's edition of the At Bat Baseball podcast. With the winter meetings, still a few days left in the winter meetings. I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about next week. So I want to thank Gabe and Chris for joining me this week. I want to thank Miles as well for chiming in via phone, and we'll hopefully have him for next episode. And hopefully everyone enjoys their week.
Yeah, I missed it. Miles was going off today, man.